To another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. Yeah, so happy to be with you. Happy you could be with me. Hope you're having a good day. And if I can just kind of just go up a little here. Yes. So I didn't really announce this. Kind of did this pretty fast. Hello, Romulus Severan. God bless you. Romulus Severan. Where are you from, Romulus? Yeah, I've been wanting to do this actually for a couple of weeks. I've been wanting to do. Oh, God bless you from the Philippines. Beautiful Philippines. I have friends there, and I have lots of friends from there too. Thank you. So I was just gonna kind of talk about 5 ways that the Quran is not preserved. Oh, well, I only have time to talk about five, but there's an infinite number of ways the Quran is not preserved. Okay, but I'm just going to talk about five of them today. And you know the number one way, you know, one way. Oh, no, I got it backwards. Number one way the Quran is not preserved. And you can use all the fancy words you want, to try to justify it, but there's really no way around this one. This is such a very strong argument against the preservation of the Quran. I mean, you probably got about 50 arguments against the preservation of the Quran in this verse. And let me see if I got it in here so I can write all these 50 ways down. 50 ways that this verse argues against the perfect preservation of Quran. And I don't have a pen. Can you believe that? I'm a writer and I don't have a pen. I'm still old fashioned. I know a lot of people they do things with their pen, with their phone, do everything with their phone. And it's true that I know how to do that, but I still prefer to just be able to write. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna get a pen. Okay, I found the pen. Okay. Number one way the Quran is not preserved. Okay, no, there's not any particular order of priority or anything. And there's just five. I'm just talking about 5 ways. Depending how this go, maybe tomorrow I'll do another five. But this right here, this verse is like it says Manunsikh. This is Allah speaking. If we and it is plural, Manunsikh, we don't, if we ever abrogate a verse. I'm kind of curious what the one is about. Okay, let's read the footnote here. The Quran was revealed over a period of 23 years. New rules were introduced when the believers were ready to accept and apply them. Replacing a ruling with another is called abrogation, nasakh. For instance, alcohol consumption was forbidden over these three stages, respectively. Some of Muhammad's companions says if drinking had been forbidden from day one, no one would have accepted Islam. Give me a break. Give me a break. Oh my goodness. How pathetic. So Allah has to gradually present his. Anyway, but the problem with the abrogated verses, the biggest problem with the abrogated verses from my perspective is that, instead of going from bad to good, the verses go from good to bad. Not that there's any good Quran verses, but the verses that were abrogated are usually better than the verses that abrogated them. For instance, one of the ways, one of the most famous verses that are abrogated is the verse, "There is no compulsion in religion." You have your religion, I have mine. Tolerance. Well, that's been abrogated. Been abrogated by 9:5, which says, "Kill the pagans wherever you find them." Okay, and I'm not making this up. Jalaluddin Suyuti says that like 127 peaceful verses of the Quran, this is from the Mecca period, were abrogated by the verse of the sword. The verse of the sword, which is Quran 9:5. And one of the most violent verses in the Quran, and one that still applies. The thing about, whenever Muslims say, well, look what the Bible says and how Joshua treated the Amalekites and treated the different groups when they were conquering the land. Well, those rules applied for that time and that place. They don't apply anywhere else. But the Quran verses apply everywhere and every time. They apply everywhere and every time. And so these verses, the violent verses, they have been abrogated. And so anyway, I'm going to see if I can look for the different way. Now there's three kinds of abrogation. But anyway, let's finish reading the verse first. It says, if we ever abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten. Now, if these words are on the eternal preserved tablet and Jibril brings it down to Muhammad and tells him these are Allah's words, the unchangeable words, uncreated words of Allah. And then Allah makes people forget them. I mean, abrogate is one thing. There's so many issues with abrogate that completely destroy the whole doctrine of Quran preservation. It completely destroys the doctrine of Quran preservation. Abrogation does. Because according to the Muslim belief, the Quran is the perfect words of Allah from the perfect preserved tablets up in heaven, up in Jannah, and Jibreel would bring down different verses to Muhammad over a 23-year period, or depending, the Quran also says that it came down in one night, Laylatul Qadr. So there's a contradiction in the Quran. Is it over 23 years or is it over one night? Okay. But the idea of abrogation, I mean, like I said, this verse has, okay, abrogation. Number two, Allah makes him forget. Allah makes him forget. We replace it. So Allah himself replaces the verse that he makes to be forgotten or that he makes to be abrogated. He replaces. Now, if when it came to Muhammad, it was the perfect word of Allah written on the eternal tablet before the creation of the universe, how can it be replaced? How can it be replaced? Because so things that argue against the perfect preservation of the Quran. Number one, abrogation. The whole idea, the concept of abrogation, the concept that Allah deletes a verse and puts another one in and replaces it. Replaces it. If it's perfect word of Allah, does it need to be replaced? And then what does he replace it with? Something better. How can something be better than Allah's words? Eternal words, eternal unchanging word that Allah, that the pen wrote on the preserved tablet before man's created. And there's something better than those words to where Allah has to make them be forgotten. All of this is so inconsistent. It's so inconsistent. It's so contradictory. And I hope that there's some Muslims here. I hope you're going to think about this. How does this, and this is not hadith, this is Quran. The Quran is saying this. That he's going to bring one that's better or a similar one. Well, if it's going to be similar, then why did you change it? So you're replacing a 1979 Toyota Corolla with another 1979 gray Toyota Corolla. Why replace one if it's similar? Like if a verse said, "You shall not commit adultery," Allah abrogates it and replaces it with, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Or if it says, "You shall not steal," and Allah abrogates it and replaces it with, "You shall not steal." So he abrogates it with something better or like it. And in Arabic, it's the same way. Bikhair minha. Khair means better. Oh, mithilha, or like it. Like what? And why go through all that trouble? Why didn't Allah just give the good verse or the better verse at the beginning? Why did he give the lousier one first to where he had to give the better one later on? So we have all of these arguments. Better, similar. Just in this verse. Do you not know that Allah is most capable of everything? Well, if he's capable of everything, why didn't he give the right verse at the beginning? Why did he give the lousy one first to where he has to replace it later? Why did he give the lousy one first to where he has to replace it later? This verse, let me see. Here's 5 ways this argues against perfect preservation. Number 1, abrogation, that Allah has to replace his words. Number 2, forgetful. He makes people forget He makes people forget. Why give it if you're going to make people forget it? And it's different. In the Bible, you read sometimes where God says that people forgot His word. Well, it's one thing if you forget His words through your neglect, but this verse talks about Allah making you forget. He says He causes it to be forgotten. Yes. Come say hi, boo boo. Come say hi. There you go, boo boo.
Thank you.
You guys, hey, baby.
Of course.
Oh, I just want to ask you guys to pray for Haida, you guys. Yes. I just want to ask you guys to pray for Ida, okay? What Oka says, boo boo. Okay. So anyway, all of these argue against perfect preservation. There's no way around it. This verse right here destroys anything. This verse right here destroys Islam. And it destroys the belief in perfect preservation of the Quran. And let's look at another verse about abrogation. Let me see. Okay. Look at how this one translates. Whatever verse we might abrogate or consign to oblivion. So this is the word of Allah. You consign it to oblivion. We bring a better one or the like of it. Okay. Okay, let's look at 16:101. Look at 16:101. This one was also about, oh, maybe I could open it from here. Okay. And we replace a verse with another. So Allah's the one doing this. So this is another thing Muhammad blames Allah for. He blames Allah for making him forget the Quran because Muhammad forgot verses. Several times Muhammad forgot verses. And so he said Allah made him forget it. So when we replace a verse with another, and Allah knows best what He reveals, they say you, Muhammad, are just a fabricator. In fact, most of them don't know. So even in his day, innama inta muftari. Okay, muftari means you're kind of making stuff up. And so even in his day, people were saying, dude, this messed up, man. You're bringing the perfect word of Allah, and then you forget it, and then you change it, and he blames Allah. He says Allah's the one who's doing this. He's the one replacing it. If there's a Muslim here, I'd like you to come up and tell me, why does Allah need to replace His word? Why does Allah need to replace His word? Thank you so much, Waraka. Please do pray for her. Yeah. Okay. If we do have a Muslim who comes on, I'd like for you to come up. Here's the link. You can join us. Please, you guys, just let Muslims come up. If there's a Muslim, you're welcome to come up. I think there's a way, I saw Adam Seeker does it, where you put the link so people can join, anyone, and then just say you want Muslims to join or something. So I put it here, but there's a better way to do that. I'm going to figure out how to do that. So, but anyway, we replace a verse with another, and Allah knows best what He reveals. Just this right here tells you the Quran is not perfectly preserved. If it was perfectly preserved, Muslims, that means that the way it's sent down is the way it remains. You don't have to change it. But Allah is changing it. And not only is He changing it, it's a very strange thing, this abrogation issue, because abrogation, when Allah abrogates a verse, He puts something else in its place. That means that whatever He sent wasn't perfect. And there's three different kinds of abrogation. This is hilarious. One is that Allah abrogates the text, but He doesn't abrogate the ruling. He abrogates the text, but He doesn't abrogate the ruling. For instance, the verse about stoning an adulterer. Okay, well, the text is not in the Quran. There's no verse in the Quran that says stone the adulterer. Okay, but they do it because the ruling remains, but the text is gone. So you still practice it, but the text is gone. Help me, ilhaqni, ya Shaykh. Please, if there's a Muslim, come on, explain this to us. Please, come on and explain this to us. So the text is gone. It's no longer in the Quran, but the ruling still applies. Other times, the ruling is gone, but the text is still there. The ruling is gone, but the text is still there. For instance, like there is no compulsion in religion. There's that. Now, the words are still in the Quran, but that verse doesn't apply anymore. It's been deactivated. That verse doesn't apply anymore. So it's been deactivated. But it's still, the text is still there, but the ruling doesn't apply anymore. So it's like the opposite. One is the ruling, the text is gone, but the ruling still applies, like stoning adulterers. It's not in the Quran. It was in the Quran, but it's not in the Quran anymore, meaning the Quran has not been perfectly preserved. But the ruling still applies. They still do it. They do it even though the text is gone. Other verses, the text is still in the Quran, but the ruling doesn't apply anymore. Its words don't mean nothing. They're just there for nothing, for no reason, because they don't apply anymore. For instance, you have your religion, I have mine. And I know it's one of the most famous verses Muslims memorize, but lakum ad-dinukum waliya din. But that's been abrogated. So it doesn't apply anymore. So the ruling is, the words are still there, but the ruling doesn't apply anymore. Then there's a third kind, which is the ruling and the text are gone. Okay, so there was a ruling, there was a text, but both are gone. So they don't apply anymore. So anyway, this is another way that, okay, and let's look at the final version of you guys, and each one of these, they're all each one of these, you can write a book about each one of these. There's just so much contradiction and problems with it. And then the third verse about abrogation is Allah, okay, فَيُنْسِخْ Allah مَا يُلْكِي الشَّيْطَانُ ثُمَّ, okay, it says Allah abrogates what Satan casts in. ثُمَّ يُحْكَمْ Allah آيَاتُ. Okay, so Allah would eliminate what it that's not what it says. Trying to. Okay, Allah nullifies what Satan casts, and he makes his verses firm. Now, this verse right here is about the satanic verses. Here's a better version. Allah abolishes what Satan throws in. Throws in where? Throws into the Quran. Allah removes it. Because we're talking about verses here. So there's verses that Satan casts in. Allah abrogates them. He removes them. Okay. But which verses did Satan cast in? Which verses did Satan throw in? According to this, Satan threw words into the Quran. Which are those verses? We know the story of the satanic verses, but a lot of Muslims don't believe in that story. But if that story is not right, then there's some other verses that Satan cast in. Which ones are they? The whole Quran? Which verses did Satan cast into the Quran? And that Allah had to take out. Okay, so those are 3 verses about abrogation. And you can find so many ways that the Quran is not. If Allah has taken out verses of the Quran because Satan put it in, that means the Quran did not remain the same. Okay, so let me write this down. If Allah takes out what Satan put in, the Quran is not perfectly preserved. If Allah makes people forget his verses, it's not perfectly preserved. When we cancel a message or throw it into oblivion, we replace it with the one that's similar or better. Allah abrogates or confirms what he wills, and he has with him the book of books. Yoboye, the book of books. Yoboye. When we replace a message with an Allah, Allah knows best. If we are pleased, we could take away what we have revealed to you. Then you will not find anyone to plead for it with us. Allah abrogates what Satan casts in. By degrees shall we teach to declare the message so that you shall not forget, except as Allah wills. So you will not forget. But unless Allah makes you forget, why does he give it to you if he makes you make you forget? Was it a mistake for Allah to give it to you in the first place? Is that why he makes you forget? Can't Allah, who is all powerful, help you remember? Because that was Muhammad's problem, is that he had a lousy memory and he'd forget verses. Couldn't Allah, who is able to make you forget, help you to remember so that you don't forget? Okay. But so yeah, these are the abrogation risks. So abrogation, you guys. We should do one more thing with abrogation, okay? We should just do one more thing. I'm just going to do one more thing, okay? And I'm just kind of curious. I'm just kind of curious. What Ibn Abbas, Muhammad's cousin, has to say about okay. Okay, if we have a Muslim, please feel free to come on. We'd love to have a Muslim help us come on and help us understand these things. Okay. I'm going to look at 2252 about Satan casting in verses. What is this about? See what Muhammad's cousin said. Never sent me a message, but when he recited Satan proposed opposition, which Allah abolishes what Satan proposes. Okay, that didn't. How about? Okay, how about you see? How about 2106? Okay, Allah mentions that what was abrogated of the Quran and what was not abrogated as direct reference to the claim of the Quraysh who said to Muhammad, "Why do you command us to do something and then forbid it?" Such saying, such of our revelations as we abrogate. We do not erase a verse that was acted upon before, which is now not acted, or cause to be forgotten, or leave unabrogated so that it is acted upon. We bring one better. We send Gabriel, which is much more with that which is much more profitable and easier to act upon, like in reward, benefit, or action. Okay, so that doesn't really help. Let's see if, okay, this actually has it. Okay, nothing of our revelation, not a single verse do we abrogate or cause to be forgotten, but we bring in its place one better. The commentators of Quran said, the idolater says, do you not see that Muhammad commands his companion with something and then forbids them from the same and commands them to the exact opposite? One day he says something, the following day he retracts it. This Quran is nothing but the speech of Muhammad, who has invented it. This is what they were saying in his day. It is speech that contradicts itself. Allah exalted is he, therefore revealed the and when we put a revelation in place of another, nothing of our do we abrogate. We bring something better. Humorous. So hilarious. That's the best they come up with. My goodness. I mean, these guys in his day, they were smart. They were not fooled by this. But so many people today are fooled by it. So anyway, this could be a weeks long topic, and we'll talk about it again. It's very important. Let's see. But what about 6:15? Perfected is thy word, thy Lord, and justice. There is naught that can change his word. Yeah, but yeah, that's why we need, you see, Truth Defender, that's why we need a Muslim to come on and help us. Because a Muslim understands this stuff. And it makes sense to a Muslim that Allah does this, especially when he talks about it in the Quran so many times, not just once. This was something that was happening a lot, to where Allah had to send all these verses in. Okay, that's one way. That is one way. That is one way that the Quran is not perfectly preserved. That's one way the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Okay? So now let's go see another way. I know the Arabic word, I'm not sure the English word. So I'm going to write it in Arabic. Mahkam. Right here. This verse really. It says, Ali Imran, it says, he is the one who has revealed to you the book, of which some verses are precise. They are the foundation of the book, while others are elusive. Let's look at the footnote. The precise verses are easy to understand and deal mostly with matters of belief and practice, such as the belief in one God, forbidden foods, and commandments. As for the elusive verses, their full meaning is known only to Allah, such as the meaning of letter combination at the beginning of some surahs, such as Alif Lam Mim, and how Allah settles himself on the throne. Okay, they are the foundation, while others are elusive. Those with deviant hearts follow the elusive verses, seeking to spread doubt through their false interpretations, but none grasps their full meaning, except Allah. Well, then why give them to people? Okay. You see, this is another way that the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Okay. Because he's got these verses here that nobody can understand. Okay, now I'm kind of curious now. I'm also curious how, oops, did I show that to you guys? Let me show it to you so you can see it. It says here, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن الكتاب هم الكتاب. الكتاب. You know, here it says foundation of the book, but here in the Arabic it says they're the mama of the book. They're the mother of the book. الكتاب. Who is this mother of the book? Help me. We need a Muslim to come help us here. هن الكتاب. They are the is not the foundation. Means mother in Arabic. Ummi, my mother. الكتاب. This الكتاب. I'm going to have to do something about her tomorrow. Okay. الكتاب. Okay, this is in 3:7. Has a mother. وآخر المتشبهات. فأما الذين قلوبهم زيغ فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة. Okay. Those with deviant hearts follow the elusive verses to spread doubt. Okay, so why did Allah put them in there in the first place? Okay. Again, I want to see what our friend, I always go to Ibn Abbas first because he is Muhammad's cousin, contemporary. He knew him. And so I'm always curious what he has to say. Okay, let's look at what it's a little bit long, unfortunately. But like I said, if we have some Muslims, please join and help us to understand what the heck this means. It says, he who has revealed the scripture to you, Muhammad, sent Jibreel with the scriptures, wherein are clear revelations expositing the lawful and the unlawful, which are not abrogated and which are acted upon. They are the substance of the book. They are the foundation of the book, as they are the leading theme in each book. They are acted upon. An example is when Allah says, come, I'll recite to you that which your Lord hath made sacred duty for you, 6:151. Others are allegorical, vague in their meanings. To the Jews, like the use of the letters of the alphabet, Alif Lam Mim. Other verses are abrogated and no longer acted upon. Allegorical. Okay. But those, the Jews, Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, whose hearts is doubt, skepticism, opposition, and deviance from guidance, pursue, forsooth, that seeking to explain it, to determine the future of this nation, so that dominion reverts back to them. None knoweth this explanation, the future of this nation, save Allah. Okay, this is a little bit long and a little bit verbose. Okay, let's see if we can just see from Asbab al-Nuzul. Okay, Asbab al-Nuzul doesn't have it. Maybe Sayyid al-Maududi might have something to say about this. Al-Maududi is someone, oh, no, he doesn't. How about Ibn Kathir? Okay, Ibn Kathir does have something about it. Allah says in the verse, there's ayat that are muhkamat, entirely clear and plain. These are the foundation of the book, which are plain for everyone. And there are verses in the Quran that are mutashabbahat, not entirely clear for many or some people. So those who refer to the muhkam ayat to understand the mutashabbah will have acquired correct guidance. They are the foundations of the book. This is the basis of the Quran. Okay. Others are not clear. Okay, look at this. Look at what Ibn Kathir says. And others not entirely clear, as they have several meanings, some of which agree with the muhkam and some that carry other literal indications, although those meanings might not be desired. They may have many meanings. The muhkamat ayahs also explain abrogating rulings. Okay, so, all right, well, there's another way the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Okay, another way that second here, I got to go back into the English. Okay, I want to show you this. Show you this another way the Quran has not been preserved, and this verse I know is very well known to you. This is from Umar bin al-Khattab, always here to cause doubt. He says, Umar reportedly say, let none of you say, I have got the whole of the Quran. How does he know what all of it is? Much of the Quran has gone. Let him say instead, I have got what has survived. Ya boy, ya Muslim, help us. تعالوا ساعدونا نفهم شو معنى هالكلام. This is the second caliph, Umar bin Khattab, Muhammad's father-in-law, the father of Hafsa. Look what he says. Much of the Quran has gone. Ya boy, ya boy. How can you say that and then say the Quran is perfectly preserved? Um, how can you say that you have the whole Quran? Okay, when Umar bin Khattab says much of it has gone, much of it has gone. Okay. So this is Umar bin Khattab, it doesn't, okay, this is Umar bin Khattab. He's a caliph, okay? It's not like you can just write off his words, He's saying, don't say you have the whole Quran. Say you have what remains of it, okay? And so, help us, Muslims, help us, because we are confused. We are so confused. We need your help to understand this. If you're a Muslim, and you guys, one reason why this bothers me a lot is, like I've told you 700 times, I was a Muslim, and I used to believe this. I used to believe that every single dot, every single letter of the Quran is perfectly preserved. And so when you find out, wait a minute, Umar bin Khattab, the second caliph, says much of it has gone. Much of it has gone. Then what do you do with that? Okay. So that's the second way the Quran is forgotten, is that, okay, second proof that the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Much has gone. Umar bin Khattab. Then we have this. It was narrated by Abdullah Muslim. Ubay bin Ka'b says, how long is Surah Al-Ahzab when you read it? Or how many verses do you think? I said to him, 73 verses. He said, only? There was a time when it was as long as Surah Al-Baqarah, and we read in it, the old man and the old woman, if they commit zina, then stone them both, a punishment from Allah. And Allah is almighty and most wise. Okay, so this was in Surah Al-Ahzab. Surah Al-Ahzab is chapter 33, Surah 33 of the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab. And it is 73 verses now. But according to Aisha, it used to be as long as Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah, I believe, is 286 verses. Okay, 286 verses, but only 73 of those verses remain. So what happened? What happened to the other 230 verses? I mean, this even tells us what some of the verses say. It tells us that the verse says that if a man and woman commit adultery, stone them both. Jews, Um, excuse me here a second. I want to find out how long Surah Al-Baqarah is. Surah Al-Baqarah is 286 verses, but Surah Al-Ahzab is only 73, but Aisha said that Surah Al-Ahzab used to be as long as Surah Al-Baqarah. That means it's missing about 210 verses. So there's another way the Quran is perfectly preserved. Not. It is not perfectly preserved. Okay. So yeah, that's the, you know, How could so much of the Quran be missing? How could so much of the Quran be missing? 210 verses from one surah? Umar bin Khattab says much of it has gone. How is it possible? When you consider that Islam teaches that nobody can change the Quran. Nobody whatsoever can change. Impossible. لا تبديل لكلماته. There is no changing his words. Okay. Now, another way that we know the Quran has not been perfectly preserved, and this it says the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed. The paper was with me, this is Aisha speaking, under my pillow. When Muhammad died, we were preoccupied with his death, and a tame sheep came in and ate it. So a tame sheep, not a wild sheep. Okay. And so this was a good sheep, a good house sheep, but it liked to eat Quran. So it ate these verses. And these verses are so interesting. So much is based on these verses. For instance, the fact that, this is one of the verses that is not in the Quran, but it used to be, because this verse tells us that it was there, the stoning verse. The text is missing from the Quran, but the ruling still applies. So they still follow this verse, but it's not in the Quran anymore. But it was in the Quran before. It was in the Quran before until a goat ate it. Okay? Or a sheep ate it. So a tame little sheep came and ate Quran, and Allah did not preserve the Quran from this sheep. Okay? So the question, was Allah incapable of preserving the Quran from this sheep? Because they actually lost text. They actually lost verses. There's the verse of the stoning and the verse of the breastfeeding of adults. They lost them. They're not in the Quran anymore. Now, the ruling of the stoning still applies, but the breastfeeding of adult men, we know it was in there. Aisha tells us it was in there. It says the verse of stoning and breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed and was with me under my pillow. So Aisha had it, but then a sheep ate it. So that's another way the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Okay. And the final way I want to show you that the Quran is not perfectly preserved. Okay. Let me just put this here. Is that there are so many verses that are different between the Hafs and the Warsh. We're just talking about the Hafs and the Warsh, but there's also so many others that, for instance, this word right here, naghfiru, we give mercy. In the Warsh, it's yaghfiru, which means he gives mercy, or they give mercy. Okay, or she, yaghfiru, and that's because the diacritical marks are different. Okay, there's also this one, which is one of my favorite, which is جعلوا الملائكة الذين هم عباد الرحمن. The word here is abad. This is the Warsh version of the Quran. But in the Hafs Quran, they put the dot on top instead of on the bottom. When it's on the bottom, it's abed, which means slaves. But when it's on top, it means عند, which means with. So if you go to the Hafs Quran and you read this verse, it says, the angels, they are with their Lord. Whereas you go to the Hafs, it says the angels, they are slaves of their Lord. The difference is the dot. If you put the dot on top, it becomes عند. If you put the dot on the bottom, it becomes abad, which it means slaves. Okay, so these different qira'at is another way the Quran is not perfectly preserved. And there's so many differences between just the two Hafs and Warsh. Imagine if we were to look at all the versions, all the different versions of the Quran that are out there. Okay. So, all right, you guys. Well, I just wanted to do something about ways that the Quran is not preserved. It's so easy to find different ways that the Quran is not preserved by Allah. So, all right, you guys. Well, we didn't have any Muslims come on. I was kind of hoping a Muslim would come on and try to correct me, try to defend the Quran, to try to defend Muhammad or Allah, but nobody came on. So we're going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm a little bit tired. So thank you for being with us. If you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. We love you, but much more importantly, He loves you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and have a blessed night.